Behold, O loving entities of the Chamber of the Horrors. This is See You Next Time. We're back today to spend a few moments walking amongst the chaotic souls of r/am I a feckwitted moron. We've got wannabe princesses, terrible husbands, and terrible wives. Never let it be said that this disembodied voice is prejudice. I hate everyone equally. Between you and me, I'd say it's a very good idea to like, comment, and subscribe. It all helps me massively, and you get that warm, fuzzy feeling deep inside, much further than your fingers can reach. So strap in, strap on, and buckle up. Let's descend into the abyss together. Enjoy. This one's from Efficient Expert. Am I a full-on nincompoop for telling my wife that she isn't a princess? For the past several months, she has been eerily acting like a child. I understand that she's playing with our daughter, but it comes across as weird to me to the degree that she plays the role. Our daughter wanted a mini pizza, and so she asked me to make her one. I was, and then my wife said, "Me too, because I'm a princess too." I told her, "No, you're an adult and not a princess. I'll make you one, but you're an adult." She laughed nervously and said, "Okay, never mind." Our daughter heard and said, "Dad, Mom is a princess too." I just said, agreeing, but I didn't want to have to explain to her. I did feel bad because my wife changed out of her princess clothes too, but I don't know whether this whole ordeal makes me a nincompoop. I guess this one's a matter of degree. Like if the wife was playing dress up with the daughter for one evening, OP's behaviour was 100% nincompoop. But if she's doing this 24/7 and being completely childish all the time, I can only imagine how frustrating and disturbing that would be. If it were me, I'd be taking her for a fully fledged psych evaluation. If it's something like once a week, just deal with this ordeal and be thankful she's spending quality time with your daughter. This one's from Wife My Job. I'm a 30-year-old man and have a wife who's 30 as well, and a daughter who's 7. I work in finance, and my wife is a stay-at-home mum, as I earn sufficient for the both of us. My wife's a great stay-at-home mum and takes great care of our house. I was lucky to buy a home as I earn well in a medium cost of living city. I love my wife, but she finds it humorous to say that I'm incapable of doing household tasks. We had agreed that she would do them when we decided she would stay at home, but I do stuff occasionally when we are both home, if she asks me to. But then, if I say load the dishwasher for her, she will claim I did it wrong just because I do it different than she does. It still cleans well. The other day we were eating, and she told me about her day and how she went grocery shopping and optimised the cost by buying specific items at specific stores and accounting for the cost of travelling to each store. And she made an offhand remark that I would never be able to do that, and said it in a "what would you ever do without me" kind of way. I replied back saying that of course I could do it. I handle complex decisions and calculations at my work, as I work in finance, and that I have a master's degree, and what I do involves more intellect than household operations, even though I acknowledge and appreciate what she does. I would be capable if the roles were reversed. She got angry and seemed to think I was calling her stupid when I wasn't, and then cried, and now I feel like a municipal sewage main. She said she was a very good student, and had she graduated, she'd be in my position as well. My wife and I met in college, but she was an international student studying physics and computer science, and she had issues with her loan from her home country, and could not afford to complete it. And we got married then so she could stay. Initially, she wanted to complete it later, after finding the funds, but she agreed to be a stay-at-home mum when I got a good job, and I appreciate that a lot as we were able to have a kid early on, even while I was both completing my masters and working full-time. Am I a municipal sewage main? Yeah, I suspect that if OP's wife were to tell this story, it would sound a little different and be something like, "My husband wildly overreacted and put me down when I made a jokey comment about getting the shopping in." Though I will stop short of the typical "wise minds of Reddit" response, immediately jumping to the conclusion that she's trapped in a loveless, financially abusive marriage. I will say, though, that Hubby sounds like a dick and is probably 60% knobgoblin. As regular viewers will be aware, my modules in armchair psychology are kind of scattered, but on this occasion we're going to take a look at the positions of some of Reddit's professional armchair shrinks. Even though there's an awful lot of assumptive white knighting in the comments, I think there's also a level of truth in there. After reading OP's comment, "You're the asshole, OP. Your wife gave up everything in order to raise your child. This includes making your master's degree and your career possible. You literally would have neither of those things if she hadn't sacrificed everything she wanted for herself to make your life possible."
What do you mean everything?
Everything!
She could have left you with a kid, returned to her home country and let all of your dreams fall apart instead of her own. Several people have suggested that you take up her job since you believe you can do it and allow her to return to her education. You have declined. This means you literally can't do the job. You lied. Why would you decline to do this? I'll tell you, because it has a massive personal cost and sacrifice to give up what you want so someone else can have what they want. That's what she did for you. You aren't capable of that, or you would. Forget the groceries. You are literally refusing to do her job because the cost is too high for you to pay, in your mind. It wasn't too high for her to pay, and for her to keep paying, so you actually cannot do her job. I suggest that you do something to allow her to be more fulfilled. At a minimum, cut back on your work hours so she can return to her education part-time. Take up a lot more at home so she can pursue another interest, whatever. Either way, it's the bare minimum you owe her. She's obviously unfulfilled, and since you made your dreams happen, it's your turn to return the favour. Stop saying you can do her job when you can't and are flat out unwilling to, and start looking for ways to give her a sense of pride and accomplishment. She deserves a happy and fulfilled life too. Edit. For those who are confused, here are OP's relevant comments. On the question, does she want to finish her education? She has said that she wants to go back and talked about the great things she could have done, but I never asked her because she always follows up with, it might be too late. I did tell her that to an extent it's true, and that it's hard to start your career late. She wouldn't be able to afford it without me, and she would have less time for our daughter if she did that, so I'm not super keen on encouraging that, and she's not mentioned it to me directly. She doesn't even have a bachelor's, only an unfinished one. If she went back, I feel like she would want to do the same thing or just computer science. She's not into arts or business things. She still does programming as a hobby. Initially, the plan was for her to start working once she was legally allowed to do so after marriage, and then get another loan and go complete her degree. But once I got a good job, we could manage on one income, and I asked her about being a stay-at-home mum and having a child, and she agreed. On paying for his wife's education, please note that his wife made his education possible. I was thinking of bringing up getting a second child. Getting a second child? Okay. I don't think we could afford that if she were in school and I was paying for it, especially an Ivy. She was an academic snob back then, so she would definitely want to go to an Ivy, and she knows our finances, so it would be theoretically possible, but put a dent in it. She would very likely want to finish her Ivy degree. She has 3 semesters left to graduate. I was thinking of talking to her about a second kid. She was previously at an Ivy and tuition is expensive, and even more so than when we went, so I don't think she could afford that by working herself. I could only afford it as my parents helped me, and your wife, OP, once again. On the fact that a second child would likely set back her goals. By then I really doubt she would have any interest in going back for a career, and would be too old to get hired for junior roles. Now she is not. I meant if we had a second kid, and then she went back once the second kid was older. And here's another. Oh, this reeks of an insecure man who wants to keep his talented wife in check by securing she stays economically dependent. She was an academic snob. You mean she was doing so well academically that she was able to choose the institution, including Ivy League ones? I tell her it's hard to start a career late. Way to demotivate an already insecure person. Subtle remarks like this can nag at you until you believe them yourself and think you will never be able to make it in life. If this woman is as clever as OP describes her, I really hope she wakes up soon and realises the manipulation and disappointment she has been subjected to. The wife sounds way above OP's league, and I'm sure he realised that pretty early on and made sure to chain her to him while her visa status was still insecure and she hadn't finished her education. Pathetic. A 7-year-old probably started school full-time recently as well, so she probably has a lot more downtime with the child away at school for half the day. This may have triggered her unhappy state and she's looking for areas to be challenged. For the sake of their long-term marriage, it would be best for her to explore either finishing her degree or maybe a part-time job. She was probably trying to tease you with the "you could never do that" comment and looking for a compliment, and this guy replies with an r/I am very smart post. You're the municipal sewage main. From his comments, it sounds like he preyed on her vulnerability and manipulated her at best. The way he talks about her ambitions and family is very gross. You're the asshole. I was pretty grossed out that he said I was lucky to buy a house. OP, you are married, that should say we were lucky to buy a house. I'm pretty sure this guy is a misogynist who is trying to keep his wife in her place. I wonder if she's staying with him because she's trapped. This one's from Sally's Salon. Am I an unpheasant plucker for getting up from my chair in the middle of Christmas dinner and shouting, "Shut the pluck up about my body!" in response to my husband's observation? So, ever since I had my son months ago, my husband has started making indirect comments about my body. He never says any hurtful words, but I find his observations, as he calls it, hurtful. For example, he'd see me wearing an old top and say, "Oh, that top used to look good on you, but not anymore though." Or when he looks at my waist and says, "Wow, didn't know your waist could get this wide." Basically, passive stuff that I try to ignore till it extended to friends and family. FYI, this went on for months and months and months. We went to a Christmas celebration at his family's home. My sister-in-law complimented my floral maxi dress, and my husband said, "I agree it looks nice on you, though I have to admit that your waist could get smaller than this." Awkward silence took over. I was absolutely fuming, and this was my last straw. So I got up from my chair in the middle of dinner and shouted at the top of my lungs, "Shut the pluck up about my body!" He was absolutely speechless as his family stared while some others tried to get me to calm down, but the situation got more tense and dinner ended up being cut short and my husband storming off to his friend's place to spend the night, upon leaving a very nasty text saying I embarrassed him and made a scene over an observation he made. He called me childish and told me to get therapy for my insecurities instead of verbally abusing him and scaring his family. Now I feel like an absolute idiot butthole and like I ruined Christmas for him and everybody with my oversensitivity. Am I an unpheasant plucker? Okay, so the OP is talking about indirect observations with no hurtful words that she's, for some wild, unknown reason, taken offence to. Yeah, that is not how I would describe these observations. I put it to you, my lord, that darling Hubby's comments are just plain nasty, and that he's a massive bellend for slagging off your postnatal body. I suspect you bringing up how you'd need a magnifying glass and tweezers to give him a quick hand shandy at your next family dinner might give him something to think about. There's a particularly good comment from If Grigby, too. I think the last thing your husband really wants is for you to get therapy. If you do, you'll discover that he's an emotionally abusive bully and stop feeling guilty for refusing to put up with his BS. Not the butthole, but your husband is. Do as he recommended and get therapy so that you can regain the self-confidence he has eroded with his cruel observations. It's amazing how we can normalise the behaviour of ourselves and others to the point where an external eye would be shocked at the situation. Yeah. OP is 0% unpheasant plucker, and Hubby gets an 80% gold-plated douche canoe. And, once again, we find ourselves spent and awestruck at the bewildering array of fuckwittery offered to the cosmos by these pesky humans. As a disembodied voice, I can, thankfully, separate myself from these ridiculous specimens of your species. Perhaps you'd like to join me as a non-corporeal entity by undergoing the tray panning procedure, creating a hole in your head which will allow you to move freely through the spirit realm. Simply take a sharp obsidian blade and scrape or chisel your way through the skull to unleash powers beyond our ken. The best use of those powers is obviously to click the little bell icon and share this video with the universal consciousness. And remember, most importantly, the radiant, refined, and reasonably rabid girl in my head likes to use the tray panning hole to pop in and out, so it's polite to add a little door or a beaded curtain as a simple privacy screen.
C. You. Next.
Time.